Have you realized that everything you've been taught about power is wrong? They say you have to be fair, be kind, be transparent. But Machiavelli showed that this is the perfect recipe for being devoured. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, reveals that those who play the game naively end up as disposable pieces on the board. Is it cruel? Perhaps. But it's real. Because deep down, the world doesn't respect purity. It respects strategy. What you'll discover here isn't self-help advice. It's a surgical procedure. These are the silent weapons that leaders, kings, and tycoons have always used, but that no one dares teach you. The end justifies the means, and if your goal is to avoid being manipulated, you need to know each of these tricks. Some of them sound almost forbidden, as if you were accessing secrets that should remain locked in ancient libraries. Get ready. With every minute of this video, you'll see that the rules were never what they seemed. You'll understand why being feared rather than loved might be the only way to avoid being crushed. And you'll discover, step by step, how to become someone no one can touch, control, or tear down. Silence as a weapon. Few people understand that silence is, in itself, one of the sharpest weapons anyone can wield. When an opponent attacks with words, the automatic response is to return the same tone. But anyone who knows Machiavelli knows that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires cold calculation. In many situations, talking too much is like digging your own grave. Silence, on the other hand, creates discomfort, leaving the other person wondering what you're thinking, what cards you're hiding. It's like a chess player who doesn't need to announce every move, just lets their opponent writhe in uncertainty. Remember, in power struggles, the end justifies the means. And if that means is simply keeping your mouth shut, so much the better. Silence, when strategic, becomes a virtue. Self-control that inspires more fear and respect than any inflammatory speech. He who masters the pause doesn't need to shout. It's enough to watch, wait, breathe. Silence is an invisible fortress that guards honor without exposing vulnerabilities. Consider a practical example. Imagine a company leader being wrongly accused in a meeting. The impulse would be to defend himself, claim innocence, and present evidence. But the wise man remembers the maxim, better to be feared than loved. And in that moment, silence leaves the accuser hanging by his own rope. Those observing the scene realize, if the leader remains unmoved, perhaps the accusation carries no weight. Silence creates an aura of mystery and authority, the appearance of virtue that keeps reputation intact. This calculated use of the invisible force of pauses shows that it's not always necessary to act with swords or words. Sometimes it's enough to let the enemy bleed into thin air. Practice. The next time someone nudges you to react, count to 10 mentally and observe. The discomfort won't be yours, it'll be theirs. This is the true power play. Silence is not just the absence of a voice, it is a multiplied presence. It opens the door for others' imaginations to work against them. It is a decision based on true human nature. We know that human beings fear the unknown, what is unsaid, what remains suspended in the air. Thus, when someone does not reveal their intentions, they appear stronger, more dangerous. A general, for example, does not announce all his battle plans. He maintains his own loyal armies, waiting for the right moment, silently, ready to act. Silence gives time to adapt, observe, and measure, without rushing to expose oneself. It is constant adaptability applied to communication. He who remains silent governs, but understand, this same silence that protects, envelops, and intimidates also paves the way for another essential trick, the appearance of virtue. The appearance of virtue. Few understand that in any power struggle, being strong isn't enough. One must appear virtuous. Machiavelli taught that the appearance of virtue is a social shield because most don't see beyond the surface. A politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that people want to believe in kind, upright, almost saintly leaders. It doesn't matter what happens behind the scenes. If you appear just, you'll be defended even by those who've never met you. See how historical figures, from kings to presidents, cultivated images of public generosity while making ruthless decisions in private. It's the game of human theater, smiling to the audience even when behind the smile lies cold calculation. The end justifies the means, and the right appearance opens doors that the naked truth never would. Those who know how to manipulate this perception dominate hearts without needing to actually win them. In practice, this means you don't have to be perfect, but you do need to appear trustworthy. A businessman, for example, might make incredibly tough decisions to keep his company afloat, cutting costs, laying off employees, terminating projects. If he maintains the image of someone who acts for the greater good, making painful sacrifices for the company's survival, people will see him as a hero, not a villain. This is the power of storytelling. Avoiding hatred is less about being fair and more about projecting justice. The appearance of virtue acts as armor, protecting against direct criticism. Those who master this game know how to choose moments to demonstrate public generosity, donations, symbolic gestures, compassionate words, all calculated not to deceive, but so that the perception of value always outweighs the shadow of harsh actions. And herein lies the subtlety. It's not about lying, but about managing one's image. It's like a warrior who uses his own loyal armies for real battles, but reveals only his medals of honor, not the blood spilled. Constant adaptability is key, as the world changes rapidly, and the mask must keep pace with the stage. Those who appear virtuous have access to alliances, support, and even forgiveness in times of crisis. Think of leaders who, even after scandals, returned to power because they cultivated throughout their lives the image of protective fathers of the people. The appearance of virtue is a form of staged silence. One doesn't reveal what's ugly. One shows only what convinces. But there is another, even more effective weapon for maintaining this control: fear. When used calculatedly, it sustains apparent virtue without needing explanations. The calculated use of fear. Fear is one of the oldest tools of power, and Machiavelli was never ashamed to admit it. It's better to be feared than loved. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that love is fickle, subject to fleeting emotions, while fear is constant, solid, capable of maintaining order even in times of chaos. This doesn't mean gratuitous cruelty, but rather the calculated use of force. Those who know how to control fear don't need to raise their hands. A look, a pause, a symbolic gesture is enough for everyone to understand the limits. Imagine a boss who rarely needs to shout, but when he silently rises from his chair, the entire room settles. This is the power of well-managed fear. It organizes, disciplines, creates invisible boundaries that maintain respect. Fear is like fire. If heated too much, it devours. If moderated, it warms and illuminates. In practice, this means you must learn to balance tenderness and toughness. A teacher, for example, may be loved by their students for their teaching style, but if they never enforce discipline, they will be ignored. However, someone who combines praise with the firmness of a difficult test or a well-timed reminder earns lasting respect. Fear shouldn't be a constant whip, but a silent reminder that there are consequences. That's the point, to avoid being hated, but to ensure that fear exists. Leaders who neglect this balance end up becoming hostages to their own kindness, and those who overdo fear create revolts. Machiavelli would call this a lack of virtù, because virtù lies precisely in adjusting the measure, like an alchemist who transforms lead into gold, calibrating the doses to keep power firm and stable. Understand that fear doesn't act alone. It needs mystery to sustain itself. It's when people don't know how far you can go that fear becomes lasting. A king who punishes only occasionally, without warning, generates more tension than one who punishes daily. A businessman who never fully reveals his strategies makes competitors hesitate to take the next step. This is a decision based on true human nature. No one fears what they know by heart, but everyone fears the unpredictable. Calculated fear is like having your own loyal armies ready in the shadows, without needing to reveal them at every turn. Power lies not only in the act of intimidation, but in keeping the flame of doubt burning in the minds of others. And it is precisely here that we come across another, even more subtle and irresistible trick: the power of mystery. The power of mystery. Mystery is a rare currency in the game of power. In a world where everyone wants to show off, talk too much, and post everything, those who master the art of enigma will always have an advantage. Machiavelli knew that human curiosity is insatiable, and that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires hiding more than revealing. Power lies not only in what you do, but in what you fail to explain. When someone doesn't fully understand your intentions, they spend energy trying to decipher you, and that's where your superiority is born. It's like watching a poker player. They don't need to have the best card, just maintain a face no one can read. Silence opens doors, but mystery builds secret corridors. After all, the end justifies the means, and few things are more effective than leaving others trapped in doubt. Think of public figures who, precisely by not exposing their lives too much, have created an irresistible magnetism. Music icons, political leaders, or even entrepreneurs who say little but act a lot become living legends. They understand that the appearance of virtue is strengthened by the veil of mystery. Show a little, hide a lot. Give clues, never the whole map. This even applies in personal relationships. If you reveal every thought, every emotion, you lose your charm. If you keep part of your world hidden, the other person feels they need to conquer it every day. This is a decision based on true human nature, because human beings value what they don't immediately understand. Mystery is a magnetic field that attracts, confuses, and ultimately controls. Mystery is, in essence, a form of calculated force without ever raising the sword. Imagine a ruler who rarely appears in public. Every speech, no matter how short, carries the weight of a revelation. Or a business strategist who never reveals all his plans, leaving competitors in a constant state of alert. It's constant adaptability. You reveal when it's useful, conceal when it's strategic, and so you create an atmosphere that mixes respect and fear. Your own loyal armies are not only in the physical troops, but in the imagination of people trying to guess your next move. Mystery is a silent, almost invisible power, but it keeps everyone in suspense. And precisely for this reason, it paves the way for another, even more incisive tactic: divide and rule. The power of divide and rule. Anyone who understands Machiavelli knows that a united group is too strong to be dominated. Therefore, one of the most dangerous and effective tricks of power is strategic division. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that harmony among many is almost always a threat to the one who governs. What maintains control is not unity, but fragmentation. When parts of the same body fight among themselves, the command center reigns in peace. Think of an empire. If the provinces fight among themselves, there's no energy left to challenge the throne. The end justifies the means. And sometimes that means is to sow petty rivalries, create internal disputes, or fuel vanity so that no one perceives true authority. Division is the oldest and yet most modern way to keep power firmly in one's hands. In practice, this happens in companies, families, groups of friends, and even nations. A boss who wants to maintain leadership can subtly encourage competition among their employees. When two employees vie for attention or a promotion, they rarely unite to question management. This is a calculated use of force. but indirectly. In personal relationships, it also happens. Insecure people divide social circles so that friends never gang up on them. The secret is to avoid being hated directly, letting the conflict be horizontal, never vertical. This way, people's energy is spent on internal battles while you maintain control. It's as if you have your own loyal armies, but they don't even realize that, by competing with each other, they protect their position. This power demands constant adaptability, because dividing doesn't mean destroying. Division needs to be measured, like a poison that paralyzes without killing. The wise ruler creates tension, but also offers small doses of reconciliation, so that the parties never realize they're being manipulated. It's a dance between conflict and relief, rivalry and partial cooperation. Those who master this art keep everyone too busy to question authority. And here's the key. The power to divide is also the power to remain invisible. Because the leader doesn't appear as the culprit, he appears only as the arbiter, the one who brings peace after discord. But while everyone is grateful for the solution, they forget that he himself was the one who planted the problem. It's a hidden mechanism, and those who understand this begin to perceive another, even more subtle trick: never justifying himself. The art of never justifying. Justifying oneself almost always means surrendering. Machiavelli already intuited this. Those who rush to explain too much demonstrate weakness, showing fear of losing credibility. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, reveals that the world doesn't reward those who defend themselves, but rather those who stand firm without bowing their heads. Silence is more powerful than 1,000 justifications, because those who explain themselves already admit to being in an inferior position. When you justify yourself, you give others the chance to question further, to exploit loopholes, to transform a doubt into certainty. The end justifies the means, and in this case, the means is to nip the temptation to defend oneself in the bud. Those who master the art of not justifying themselves maintain their aura intact, like a castle with high walls. Many throw stones, but no one can see what's inside. Consider an everyday example. Someone spreads a rumor about you at work. The natural impulse is to run from desk to desk, trying to clean up your image. But those who do this end up reinforcing the rumor. The smartest strategy is to remain firm and confident, demonstrating that the rumor doesn't deserve a response. A boss who masters this art knows that it's better to be feared than loved in times of crisis, because respect is more solid than sympathy. The appearance of virtue comes into play here. If you maintain your posture and don't react, the image of solidity speaks louder than any words. It's like the calculated use of force. There's no need to strike, just don't give in. The lack of justification breeds doubt, and doubt is always more powerful than explanation. The secret lies in understanding true human nature. People don't want the naked truth. They want signs of strength. When someone stands their ground without justifying themselves, they convey authority. It's constant adaptability. Knowing when to remain silent is as strategic as knowing when to speak. Think of historical leaders who, faced with accusations, simply carried on with their actions, letting the results speak for them. This is the equivalent of having their own loyal armies responding instead of words. Every justification you avoid is another stone in the throne of your reputation. And this is precisely where the next trick comes in. If it's not enough to not justify yourself, you need to understand that it all comes down to a bigger game, the game of reputation. The reputation game. Reputation is the most valuable currency on the chessboard of power. Machiavelli made it clear, it's not just about who you are, but above all, how you're perceived. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that those who build a solid reputation can make mistakes in silence, because their public image always plays in their favor. It's like an invisible credit. Even in crises, others hesitate to doubt you. A general with a reputation for invincibility enters battles already half won, because fear precedes confrontation. The end justifies the means. And in this case, the means are stories, symbols, narratives that constantly reinforce who you appear to be. Reputation is like armor. It protects, intimidates, attracts allies, and repels enemies without you having to move a muscle. Practical examples abound. An entrepreneur who builds a reputation for innovation can launch a mediocre product and still sell well because people buy the image before the merchandise. A politician who presents himself as austere may even make management mistakes, but will be seen as upright if his reputation is consolidated. This is the appearance of virtue applied as a shield. In everyday life, you also play this game. When your co-workers see you as trustworthy, even a delay or mistake will be interpreted as the exception, not the rule. Someone with a bad reputation, even when they get things right, will be met with distrust. It's a decision based on real human nature. We don't just judge facts, we judge symbols. Those who master this understand that reputation isn't a detail, it's a strategy. Reputation, however, is not static. It requires constant adaptability, as it can erode if not nurtured. Cultivate small, visible victories, maintain loyal armies that reinforce your image, and employ calculated force to protect your reputation when necessary. A well-built reputation generates spontaneous loyalty. Even enemies are reluctant to attack those seen as respectable. But beware, the same force that protects can crush if mismanaged. Therefore, when playing the reputation game, it's vital to also learn the next trick, the strategy of scarcity, where it's not excessive appearances that strengthen, but calculated absence. The scarcity strategy. In the game of power, abundance is weakness. Scarcity is strength. Machiavelli understood that those who show themselves too much lose value, because what is commonplace ceases to be desired. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that constant presence breeds saturation, while calculated absence creates desire. When you're not always available, your every appearance gains symbolic weight. It's like gold, rare, shiny, sought after. The end justifies the means, and if the means is to maintain strategic distance, so much the better. Leaders who speak little but impactfully are remembered for decades. Those who shout every day become mere noise. Scarcity is a psychological value. Human beings tend to desire more what they can't easily have. And contrary to what many think, this isn't coldness, it's calculation. In practice, you can apply this tactic to various areas of life. Think of a professional who doesn't accept just any invitation, but only the most select. Their limited schedule makes them more respected because it conveys the message, if I'm here, it's because I'm worth it. This is a calculated use of force in the form of presence. In relationships, it works the same way. Those who aren't available at all times are more valued because their attention becomes a reward, not a habit. It's about avoiding being hated and at the same time increasing admiration. Luxury products have done this for centuries. They limit units, create queues, and increase their value precisely because they're not within everyone's reach. The mechanism is the same for people who know how to manage their presence on the social stage. The strategy of scarcity requires constant adaptability. It's not about disappearing, but about appearing at the right moment, like a king who only grants audiences on special occasions, or a master who only teaches when the disciple is ready. This selective absence strengthens mystery, increases respect, and paradoxically multiplies influence. It's like commanding your own loyal armies that only enter battle when victory is almost certain. The secret lies in timing, being available enough to not seem unattainable, but absent enough to maintain high value. And it is precisely in this game of presence and absence that another, even more refined trick is born: the art of transforming weakness into strength. The gift of turning weakness into strength. True genius in power lies not in never having weaknesses, but in knowing how to turn them into weapons. Machiavelli taught that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires accepting that everyone has weak points. The secret is to use these points as fertile ground for strategy. A leader who recognizes his limitations before others use them against him already converts them into virtue. It's like admitting, "Yes, I erred." And suddenly, what would be a flaw becomes a sign of humanity. The end justifies the means, and often the means is to expose the flaw in such a calculated way that it becomes irresistible. Think of leaders who, by being underestimated, surprised enemies when no one expected it. This inversion is pure virtue, transforming a stumbling block into a stepping stone. Practical examples abound. A businessman who started out poor can use this story of scarcity as a narrative of overcoming obstacles, creating admiration instead of pity. A politician who suffered a public defeat can rise even stronger, selling an image of resilience. This is the appearance of virtue in action. Apparent weakness becomes credibility. This even works in personal life. Someone who admits their insecurities can gain respect because few have the courage to expose themselves like that. The secret lies in the calculated use of strength, not hiding weakness, but dosing it, transforming vulnerability into connection. It's a decision based on true human nature. People don't trust perfection, they trust those who show scars. And it is in this gesture that weakness dissolves, reborn as power. Turning weakness into strength is also a matter of constant adaptability. What is a weak point today can become a strategic tool tomorrow. A small army can move faster than a large one. A youthful mistake can become a lesson that strengthens maturity. A loss can become liberation. Those who master this art maintain their own loyal armies, built not only on victories, but also on well-recorded defeats. Every weakness is an opportunity in disguise, waiting to be turned upside down. The important thing is not to deny it, but to reconfigure it. And precisely for this reason, those who learn to transform weakness into strength also discover the power to act when no one expects it. The most feared skill of all, striking without warning. The ability to strike without warning. The last and perhaps most feared of Machiavelli's tricks is surprise. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that announcing intentions is a waste of advantage. Those who strike without warning control time, space, and narrative. It's like a bolt of lightning that splits the sky silently before the thunderclap. By the time the sound arrives, it's already too late. The calculated use of force here lies not in intensity, but in unpredictability. Imagine a rival who prepares for a long confrontation but is defeated before even aligning his defenses. This is the essence of striking without warning, the power of initiative. It is better to be feared than loved, because fear arises precisely from the uncertainty of when and how you will act. And in this scenario, the end justifies the means. In practice, this means cultivating the habit of never being predictable. A businessman who announces a launch only when the product is ready disarms competitors. A politician who makes radical decisions without warning keeps opponents confused. This even applies to personal relationships. The person who suddenly changes course, who makes unexpected decisions, disrupts the other side's game. This is a decision based on true human nature. We know that the brain fears the unpredictable more than constant threat. Having your own loyal hidden armies ready to act without anyone knowing is the classic form of this skill. The enemy must never know whether you will retreat or advance, whether you will speak or remain silent. The attack, when it arrives, is born as a victory. Attacking without warning also requires constant adaptability. It's not acting on impulse, but choosing the exact moment when everyone believes you're immobile. It's transforming the unexpected into a strategic routine. Modern leaders, warriors, and even visionaries use this tactic. Suddenly, an announcement, a movement, a break from the norm, and the world turns in their favor. It's the appearance of virtue while asleep and silent fury while awake. It's the ability to turn weakness into strength, because when everyone believes you're defeated, you emerge like an avalanche. This is the pinnacle of Machiavellian power, not just reacting but dominating through the impact of surprise. And it is here, in this final trick, that all the others connect and form the image of what it means to be untouchable. Now that you know Machiavelli's most dangerous tricks, the question is, what will you do with them? Will you continue living as easy prey, justifying yourself, showing all your cards, hoping the world will be fair? Or will you accept that power has always been a game of strategy, and that if you don't play, you will be played? Every silence can be a weapon, every appearance a rare coin, every weakness an opportunity to become strength. But none of this is worth anything if you remain inactive. So I ask you, how many times have you lost because you didn't know how to use these moves? How many times have you been manipulated because you didn't understand that the end justifies the means for those who don't want to be devoured? If you want to continue learning how to use these tactics to become untouchable, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Because here, we're not talking about illusions. We're talking about the bare reality, and only those who face reality head-on gain true power. And now, I leave it in your hands. Will you apply them, or will you go back to being just another player on the board?